The summer I learned the old house remembered the names we spoke in the dark. I was 8, and the lilac hedge breathed like a patient thing at the edge of the yard. We spent our days on crumbling stairs and the porch that sloped toward the river, pretending the world beyond the hedges did not exist. The house, granite bones, shuttered eyes, a mouth of a front door that sighed when you opened it, kept its way of listening. My sister Mina believed that if you spoke a name low and steady enough, the house would lean in and whisper it back, as if the air itself remembered every voice that had ever called it home. On warm evenings we would scribble names on the kitchen wall with chalk Mother kept for the pantry labels. Names of cousins and uncles and a grandmother who had long since learned to live in only memory. We would say the names aloud, one after another. A slow rain of syllables that fogged the glass of the windows and settled like frost on the edge of the table. Mina swore the names settled somewhere near the ceiling, where a trapdoor lay hidden behind the moulding, a mouth in the wall that opened only for the truly faithful. Our ritual was simple and ridiculous, but it felt like a promise that memory would not leave us as long as we kept whispering back. That summer it ceased to feel like play, and more like a pact. A boy from the village, Jonah, drifted away one autumn day, caught in a river's sudden turn, some said, or snagged by the old currents that ran under the town like a rumour made of water. The river took him, or so the adults claimed, and in the hush that followed, our little house grew careful. We did not talk about it at the table, but the walls held it like an ache you cannot name. Perhaps it was the innocent need to believe the house could conjure a way to keep someone safe, or perhaps a child's stubborn refusal to accept loss. We kept whispering the names anyway. Decades passed, as quietly as a river learned to lie still. The old house stood through mother's illness and father's silence, through sisters growing tall and men leaving for cities they could not bear to call home. When I returned, decades later, to close it for good, the place did not sigh so much as acknowledge me with the slow, patient certainty of an old friend who never forgets a gesture you might offer again. The wallpaper peeled in the same stubborn curl along the corridor. The floorboards bore the creases of a lifetime's footsteps. The kitchen table still kept its edge of pale bloom where a vase once rested. And on its walls, there still, were the chalk names Mina and I had pressed into the plaster, though the chalk were long since washed away to white dust by years of humidity and longing. Jonah's name was faint, a breath of chalk that refused to vanish, as if the wall itself hesitated to forget his face. The first night I slept in the old house again, the air tasted faintly of lilac and rain, even though lilacs long since shriveled to husks, and storms had passed through only in memory. The clock on the mantel ticked with a patient irregularity, counting out seconds as if counting out prayers. From the hall came a soft, deliberate tapping, like a hunter's finger on a doorframe. Careful, not urgent. I told myself it was the house settling, or the wind practicing its old tricks, but the tapping seemed to grow a rhythm, as though it were listening to a heartbeat that lived somewhere between the walls and the ceiling. The second night, the air carried a scent I recognized from summer kitchens and old recipes, something herbal and faintly sweet, like a cup of tea left too long on the stove. Mina's voice came to me as if she stood just beyond the hallway, calling to me with the ordinary warmth that used to settle in a room when she laughed. I did not go to her, not at first, for I knew her voice was only a memory, sharpening its edges to touch the present. Then came a line I never forgot. The name we had spoken so often, Jonah, slipped from the wall in a whisper, as if the plaster remembered his breath too. The house began to tell me what I did not want to hear. The wall, once a pale barrier between rooms, seemed to breathe. The wallpaper's lilies drifted in ink-black waves when I passed. The wall did not merely echo names, it offered memory as if it were a currency. Speak, and you shall receive a little more of what you left behind. The names didn't come alive in the way a person does, but they threaded together into a map of rooms where the past still walked. Hidden behind a loose board in the pantry, somewhere Mina had once kept a bottle of peppermint oil when we played pretend spy games, I found a small, dust-creased notebook. The cover had yellowed to the colour of old paper money, and inside was a handwriting that belonged to a child who would never grow up to sign a letter with a proper name. It was Jonah's handwriting, I realised, or a child who believed he was Jonah, in any case. The pages described days spent in the house's underbelly, in rooms we thought were forgotten, where air grew cooler and time grew thicker. It spoke of a room that listens, of a trapdoor behind the moulding that opened only when a name was spoken with certainty and truth. "Do not be frightened," the notebook advised, in a line I could not forget, "for the house does not take you. It remembers you, and in remembering you, it keeps you safe from what you fear." There, tucked between the brittle sheets, lay a final page, crumpled and torn, as if someone had pressed it too hard and let the truth spill out. The handwriting changed on that last page, as if a different hand, older and unsmiling, had finished the entry. It claimed a thing I had never dared admit even to myself, that the house had not kept Jonah safe. The house had kept him there, in the exact place where the doors could not keep him from moving, where the walls could not forget him when the water ran against the foundation, and the river whispered his name along its dark bend. The confession was simple and terrible. A mistake, a stubborn pride, a child's longing to believe a house could shelter what the river could not. The entry explained that to keep the memory of Jonah alive enough to keep fear away, we had spoken his name again and again, as if by reciting him we could bind him to the earth where we stood. But binding is a double gesture. To bind him is also to bind us to him, and to bind us to him is to bind him to our present as well, so that the past does not become past, but remains a living, listening thing. The house, it seemed, did not forget to remind us that memory is a form of possession. That revelation did not come as a dramatic visitation. It came as a quiet insistence, the way a storm insists on